Between two great shores lies an inland sea, a proven testing ground for even the most weathered seamen. Those who have taken the challenge and run her course tell the tales of races won and races lost. Skipper's logs recount the stories, fighting storms, enduring the calm. But every year brings new expectancy, always waiting, always hoping for the race that comes only once in a lifetime.
It's a beautiful Saturday morning, July 18th, 1987. We have sunny skies, temperatures in the 80s, and a nice south to southwesterly breeze. Great day for the air show. Get on down to the lake. The Chicago Mac Yacht Race takes off today as well, just off Monroe Harbor.
It may have seemed like just an ordinary Saturday morning to most Chicagoans, but to the over 2,500 sailors participating in the Chicago to Mackinac Yacht Race, July 18th held special magic. You didn't have to say anything out loud. You could just feel it as they prepared for the 80th running of a 333-mile trek to Mackinac Island. So much preparation is required for this pinnacle event of the yachting season. An incredible sacrifice of time and resource. It makes you wonder why they return year after year.
I think one of the big reasons is just the general mystique of the Chicago Mac. It's been going on for so long, and there's so many boats that do it that are the cream of the crop, so to speak. It's a challenge to do it.
The conditions vary from year to year, and they can vary drastically. So every time you make this race, it's a unique challenge. There's no two that are identical, and that's part of the attraction.
When you're sailing along at night and the moon's out and it's a pretty night and the sails are trimmed right and the boat's moving along, it's very peaceful. It's a feeling that you don't get in a city like Chicago virtually at any time. It's in tune with nature to a certain degree. So all of those elements are what I think brings sailors back to it year in and year out.
But I'm sure that if you asked any of the skippers, they would rather win the Mackinac race than any or even all the other races in the season. The Mackinac race is the focal point of our racing, and if you think back over the years as to what you won or lost in yachting, it's how you did in the Mackinac that measures how well you did.
Every year on the night before the race, a skipper's meeting is held at the Adler Planetarium. Captains are briefed on racing regulations, safety precautions, and the all-important weather forecast.
Show you what the map will look like. This is what our map should look like tomorrow morning. As you can see, our winds tomorrow on all of the lakes during the morning hours at least will be south to southwest, and speed should be about 15 to 25 knots. We aren't expecting any precipitation tomorrow, except perhaps at the far northern end of the lake, and I'll explain a little more about that. And the waves should be running about 2 to 5 feet.
I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to wish you excellent sailing and a wonderful trip to Mackinac Island, and we'll see you up there. Thank you.
As Mackinac Committee Chairman Dick Wharton closed the meeting, the skippers left to discuss the next day's strategy. Jerry O'Neill of the Yacht Eagle and last year's IOR winner overall charts the course.
On July 18th, Chicago Yacht Club will be sponsoring the 80th Mackinac race, and it will start in Chicago with approximately 300 boats. On the chart, we have the rum line. It runs diagonally approximately 18 degrees up the lake. The widest point is near Milwaukee. It's approximately 100 miles wide. So the sailors have quite a bit of flexibility as to where they sail in the beginning part of the race. As the race continues, you're coming closer to the shore over on the Michigan side, and navigating becomes a bit more important. You wind up actually navigating between the Manitous and shore at this point. It's not mandatory that you sail between these islands and the shore, but it's the most direct course up to Mackinac Island. From here, the next spot that you're sailing for is Gray's Reef. Gray's Reef is a narrow section, approximately a couple blocks wide and maybe 3 or 4 miles long. There will be people manning a lighthouse at this point that will record the sail numbers and the times of the various yachts reaching that point. They'll be relaying that information then to the island. From there, you're sailing approximately 30 miles down the Straits of Mackinac. At this point, you'll be going underneath the Mackinac Bridge. And then it's approximately another 7 miles over to Mackinac Island over here. The finish line is between Mackinac Island and an abandoned lighthouse on a very tiny island called Round Island right here. And that's the point at which the race finishes.
One mile east off Monroe Street, each boat prepared for their particular start. The first section scheduled to begin at noon, with 11 others to follow at 15-minute intervals. With a fleet of 302 boats, the starting area swarmed under the watchful eye of the cutter Mackinac. Each yacht was identified by sail number as the race committee orchestrated the event.
There's a tremendous effort put into this by the Mackinac Committee. Literally thousands of people volunteer over the years, many hours, to make sure that it's run in a proper way and a very safe way. This will be the 80th Mackinac, run continuously year after year. 80 years, this will be the 80th year in a row. And in the entire history, there has never been the loss of one life. They put tremendous emphasis on getting people out there that are qualified and know what they're doing, and that the boats are equipped properly. Because when you're in the middle of the lake, if there's a problem, you're the only one that can take care of it.
It's a real team effort. It's not a one-man show. There are 60 members of our committee, and each and every one contributes something.
As the seconds ticked away before the gun, the spectators braced themselves for the breathtaking beauty of a spinnaker start.
Shoot up about 20 seconds before the start, and just reached along the line, and when we felt that we were 20 seconds from the line, we just bore off and went for it.
Tried to come up and squeeze in. We let her very nicely into a little trap. She thought she was going to run over us, slacked the sheets, eased back, and sailed over the stern about 6 more boats, left Heritage in the box, and sailed clear, got free air, and here we are.
It's 333 miles. If you're 30 seconds late, it's not going to be the end of the world. So basically we want clean air, but we want to stay free of any trouble.
As the last boat set sail, the scratch boat Pied Piper moved out fast, weather conditions appearing tailor-made for the 67-foot ultralight. A few days before the race, skipper-owner Dick Jennings made a few calculations.
Last weekend, we had this boat going 18 3/4 knots. 18 3/4 knots translates to about 21 miles an hour. That is a very, very fast for a boat. You can equate that if we were to maintain, say, 20 knots going to Mackinac, that we would be there in about, let's see, what would that be, in about 14 hours. And you can figure that a 14-hour race to Mackinac, when the record is 31 hours, that would be a tremendous accomplishment. This boat is capable of that now. Whether or not the winds will help us in that regard, we don't know. We'd need a lot of south wind to get there that quickly. But the boat has the capabilities of doing that, and it's one of the reasons I purchased this boat.
All things considered, the topic of conversation would inadvertently turn to the year 1911 and a record that has been celebrated for 76 years. It was to be the 8th running of the annual Mackinac race, held July 22nd, 1911. Start time 3 p.m. 11 boats entered the contest, which would prove to be a supreme test of courage, nerve, judgment, and seamanship. It was an 80-mile-an-hour hurricane that blasted the schooner Amarita into the history books as the first to finish, establishing an elapsed time record of 31 hours, 14 minutes, and 30 seconds, a record thought never to be broken. Amarita's owner and captain was Dr. W.L. Baum, a veteran seaman who led his 21-member crew through the gales. Of Dr. Baum, one of his crew members wrote, "To those of us who sailed with him, the Mackinac race of 1911 will never be forgotten." The doctor is a man of few words, but is one of those individuals who knows what he wants, and when he says anything, it means something. It is no wonder his boys, as he fondly calls them, would fight to the last ditch for the Amarita and Dr. Baum. Despite the record, the Amarita could not claim victory of the race, as the smallest boat of the fleet, Mavourneen, won with a corrected time of 28 hours, 31 minutes, and 51 seconds. Of all the 142 sailors who left Chicago that late July afternoon, all went ashore at Mackinac, safe and sound. One sloop was less fortunate. The Vencedor, winner of the 1904 and 1907 races, went aground on Fisherman's Island off Charlevoix. In the poem, The Wreck of the Vencedor, we read, "In vain brave hands like iron bands strain on that tiller bar. Not 20 men could hold her when came that last sickening jar. As mighty racer, fleet to death, crashed full upon the reef, and rose no more. The Vencedor sleeps now her last long sleep." George Trammell, owner of the famous sloop, after learning that the crew was safe, was heard to say, "I would rather see Vency go the way she did than any other way." The Chicago Mac is a race full of heritage. The stories from her 80 voyages could fill volumes. Ted Lombard, sailing veteran and previous Mackinac winner, recalls his first race.
I started sailing in 1933, my first one. I went up on a wooden boat called the Truant. And Truant is about 55 feet long and leaked like a sieve. I was glad to get on any boat, though, that I could go to Mackinac on. I pumped on the starboard side, and a friend of mine pumped on the port side when we ever tacked. We finally got up there after the race was over. We were the last boat to finish. But we thought it was a great idea to just get there in one piece, you know.
Andy McCormick, first mate on the Pied Piper, recalls his first Mac.
My first Mac race, just as a memorabilia type thing, is going underneath the Mackinac Bridge, my first race, up on the foredeck of the boat, middle of the night, and it's blowing like stink. and I'm pulling the Kevlar sail in on the rail, just getting all drenched in water. And my buddy and I would just kind of look up and say, "Hey, there's the Mackinac Bridge. This is pretty exciting." And just that whole scenario of being doused in water and working my rear end off and just stopping for a second to look at the bridge, that stuck in my mind for these past years.
The very nature of sailing seems to bring out the storyteller in us all. And as with anything as old as the Chicago Mac, the fables and folklore are sure to abound.
And the other phenomena we see periodically is Lips the killer coho, and we usually encounter Lips somewhere down around the Manitous, and Lips has been known to suck the transoms off of sailboats.
By morning of the second day, everyone knew that this was going to be no ordinary race. The wind was still filling spinnakers with a south to southwesterly breeze, and with any luck, it would hold through the course of the race. Luck, it's an element of any race. But how big a part does it play?
I believe very strongly that the boat that performs the best, and by that I mean makes the least mistakes, is going to win more often than the boats that don't. I don't think luck is that important. I think it's a big factor, but it's not the overall important factor.
The good sailors are lucky more often than the bad sailors. So the real trick is to say, I'm a pretty lucky guy, and that way maybe you think you're a little better sailor than the other guy. It doesn't always happen that way, but the good sailors generally seem to be the lucky ones too.
For about the first 24 hours of the race, we were moving really well with the fleet. And then we got caught inside of that point I was referring to. I think it's Sleeping Bear Dunes is what it's called. And it was hot, and we parked for about 12, 15 hours. And all we did is we swatted flies, we started yelling at each other. It was very frustrating. We were going to make a sacrifice, throw someone overboard. It probably would have been me, knowing my luck.
Well, a third crew, a third boat, and a third luck, especially in the Mackinac. You can get a wonderful start, and you think the guys are going to be way behind you until the next morning you wake up, after you've been sitting all night in a flat spot. And they've found a private breeze and gone around you.
A third crew, a third boat, and a third luck. Although there may be differing views on what elements combine to make a winning boat, few would contest the importance of a good crew. We asked some of the skippers what they were looking for in a crew.
The kind of people that we like are ones who are thinking about what's happening, but are people who are willing to use the same method and trust us that we're not going to change things on them. And the other thing that they have to do is be rather tenacious, because what happens is if we get behind, that just means we have to work harder. It doesn't mean we lost the race yet, and we've come from behind in a lot of races and moved ahead because we just keep trying.
Yeah, okay, a rock star is normally a paid crew member who sails as a livelihood. And this is a guy that believes that he knows more about sailing and racing than anybody else in the world. And if you have two rock stars, that's even worse, and that's one of the problems when you have big name sailors on big name boats. A lot of those boats don't do well because there's no working together, and I think that that's very important.
We approach this sport with a deep commitment to the sport, and we ask our crew to participate in every race. It takes that type of commitment to do the practicing that's required to do the maneuvers, the jibes and the tacks and the mark roundings.
Once the crew is selected, John Huff of the Yacht Glider tells how he prepares his crew for the race.
We try to get used to sailing in total darkness, where you can't see the sails very well, you can't see the waves, and you're very tired. The other combination is, I guess, well, obviously you have to get along with each other, you have to be friends. Living together on a 33-foot yacht, if you're not fast friends, you're going to be pretty unhappy, and you can't sail well if you're not with fast friends. Having a common purpose, I have my own special little speech that I give to the guys at the beginning of each race. The theme is first have a good time. I mean, that's what it's all about. Competition, it's there, you know it's there, and if you overemphasize it, of course, and if you get too intense all the time, everybody will be unhappy and you won't sail well. I think the main theme is let's do the best we can on this one race. Let's zero in on this day or this 2 or 3 day race. Almost play a mind game as if it's the last race you'll ever race in your life, and you make it your best.
There's very little talk like this going on in the race. We're not talking about how was work last week or anything like that. We're wanting to know, well, how do you think the jib is, and do you think the main is okay? And we're constantly maybe adjusting the sail a couple of inches and looking at the compass to see that we're going where we're supposed to go. Every half hour we take a Loran fix to find out where the boat is, so that we can decide whether we want to keep going the direction that we're going or make an adjustment, and so it's quite a bit of a race going on the whole way up to the island.
It's sometimes similar to just sitting outside your house for just 48 hours. Just do that without doing any activity, and you'll find out that just being outside for that period of time for someone who normally sits behind a desk or works at a factory job, you'll find that it's interesting just to do that for that amount of time.
The distinguishing factor of a longer race like the Mac is the need for a watch system. Every crew seems to have its own philosophy.
The way we generally try to do it is that we'll pair people off, and so that we don't get a crew that is with the number of people on board that is set up so that some people work the front end of the boat, some people work the back end of the boat. You want to balance that. You want to balance it in such a way that each watch has a complement of every job that needs to be done on the boat so that the other watch can rest. Generally, the way we do it is that we will go, depending upon weather conditions, 3 hours or 4 hours on, and then 3 or 4 hours off. So that means at most you can get about 3 to 4 hours of sleep on an off watch.
As the race progresses, the fleet disperses, each boat with its own private plan to win the race.
It's a strategy on the Mac race rather than tactics. See, tactics are boat for boat, and that's more course racing, but what happens on the Mac race or any long distance race is you have to pick a side of the course to be on. And then what you have to do is try to pick a side that's going to have the right winds to put you ahead. What happens is Mark is real good with a lot of wind, and I'm real good with a little wind. So we have it so that when the sun is going down, usually the wind dies. And I'm on the watch when the sun goes down, and when it comes up, the wind is usually died. And so I'm on the light air watch, and he's on the heavy air watch. And really, the crew would rather be with him because they like it when they can go along and it's nice like this. And my watch, it's crazy. We're always like changing sails and putting things up and down because the wind keeps shifting and turning, and we're trying to get the most speed out of the boat. So he would rather be on the bell ringer with him at midnight than to be with me at 4 a.m. trying to swat flies away and find a little teeny breeze so we can move at all.
There are times when you think that there's absolutely no air and you might be doing less than a knot. So you put up every light sail you can think of that will just catch even the slightest puff. And after a few hours of that, it can be very frustrating, and people start swatting flies, and your temperament gets a little bit on edge, and you think, what's the use? But that's when the race often is won or lost. You want to make sure that you are wherever there is air, because if you're going slow and there's no air around you, there's a very good chance that somewhere else out in the lake there is air and somebody else is moving away from you.
And right now it's 1845, so we'll mark it 1845, which, let's see if that corresponds where we think we are. That's 6.6 to the left, so sure enough, that's about 6.6 miles to the left of the rum line.
6 miles to the left. Okay.
Each boat is required to report its location to the race committee at a scheduled time between 3 and 9 p.m. on Sunday afternoon.
The difficulty of the race is you don't know whether or not you're in the lead or you're not. Sometimes you can see competitors and you can relate your position to them, but most of the time you have no awareness. You must absolutely fight as if it was but a moment or two that would distinguish you from winning or losing. The yachts separate from each other, and very seldom do you see those yachts again until the end of the race. So relating yourself as to how you're doing is nearly impossible.
The old byword is to cover the boats that you're ahead of, and I think that's the answer. You try to cover the boats you're ahead of. And there's no other real way to keep the lead except, once again, trim, trim, trim. You've got to make sure that the boat is trimmed as the best as possible, and that you seek out the winds. If you see a storm a mile and a half off course, you may even want to try to get to that storm in order to pick up extra breeze.
From an absolute strategy point of view, you have to sail pretty much what nature and what the winds give you at the time of the race. You can't pre-strategize, and I can't tell you today that, I'm going to sail up the west shore and that's going to be an absolute way to win the race. We tried that last year and it didn't work. So at times you just make up your strategy as you go along according to the conditions in which you're sailing.
As the boats make their way through the Manitous, the next sighting is Gray's Reef. This lighthouse is occupied by members of the race committee, who radio sail numbers to the island as the yachts go by.
And there's a mark you sail towards. It's a lighthouse. And when you get to that mark, it's like the final stretch. And at that point, everybody's attention perks up, and the next thing you look for is the Mackinac Bridge. And you make it out in the horizon, and everybody's spirits really get lifted. And you start joking around and everything, and you want to get under that bridge, because as soon as you do, you can report to the race committee that you're under the bridge, and it's any minute before you're going to get to the finish, and they're waiting for you.
This year also brought the assistance of Data General, bringing up-to-the-minute race results through computer information systems. A far cry from the postings on the old shack just off the finish line. As the boats pushed northward, life on Mackinac Island maintained its lazy summer pace, waiting for the finishers to arrive. Up at the Grand Hotel, the traditional ladies' cocktail party was being held to help wives, friends, and family endure the wait. But there was no wait to endure. For just as the party began, reports came from Gray's Reef that Pied Piper was in sight. There was a scramble as the island prepared for the historic finish of 1987. When the cannon sounded, Dick Jennings and the crew of the Pied Piper had established a new elapsed time record of 25 hours, 50 minutes, and 44 seconds, beating the old record by more than 5 hours. First Mate Andy McCormick tells how the weather and boat design combined to make this race a record breaker.
Well, this boat's a light displacement boat, and it's made for going downwind, going with the wind, surfing on the waves. We were sailing early this morning, we were surfing, we were skipping over the waves. We were going faster than the waves. And we were just going from one wave top to another. And that's what the boat was built for. These boats do 300 miles a day going out to Hawaii. And we kind of did that kind of sailing here in this MAC race.
Hip, hip. Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
Owner skipper Dick Jennings, when asked what it felt like to have the record, said,
I don't really know. It's something you kind of think about and you kind of hope for, but then when it finally happens, it doesn't sink in for a while. You hear that from all the guys that break records, you know, and records are made to be broken, so we'll be back next year.
Pied Piper's chances of winning overall?
Well, if the wind stays dead like it is right now,
We got him!
So, I don't know. It all depends on the wind and what's happening out in the lake. The chances are in a race like this that a smaller boat will win the race overall. So I don't think our chances are very good. But if the wind dies, our chances get a lot better.
Jennings shared his strategy for breaking the 76-year-old mark.
When I bought this boat, I figured that about 1 out of every 5 years, the wind blew in such a way that this boat would be qualified to, or able to have the ability to set the record. And this year was a little bit more favorable than even I would even hope for.
T-shirts with the old record time and the words, "Beat the Clock," were designed by a member of the crew. They are now obsolete.
Breaking the record by nearly 6 hours.
The shells from the cannon that marked the finish were presented to Dick Jennings along with an invitation to the ladies' cocktail party, a request that would not be denied.
My son is 26 years old. He's sailing with Dick Jennings and Pied Piper. He has also made Mackinac since he was 15 years old. And he was up here at the age of 9 months every year of his life.
My parents are the people that got me here, so I owe them a great debt of thanks. My father's done 27 of these, and I'm really proud of that, and I hope they can be proud of this.
After the more formal affair, it was time for the annual stop at the Pink Pony.
Well, we heard the party, the ladies' cocktail party at the Grand Hotel was formal, that we had to dress for it, so we felt we had to put on a tie. And since we were traveling very late, we put on the only ties we had, which happened to be sail ties.
Sail ties.
As the celebration continued, others crossed the finish line. Before midnight on Sunday, 9 other boats would go into the record books. Sassy, Brassy, Heritage, Leading Edge, Carrot 6, Abracadabra, Fujimo, Nitissima, and Bacant. It was a special time for the crew of Bacant.
You always heard about the record. Everybody tried to beat the record. You hoped for the darndest storm that you ever had and that you could survive it to get here. There were no storms. This was nothing but a sleigh ride all the way. It was one of the easiest, nicest races that we have ever had in our entire history, and I think everybody will agree with you. It was a race all in its own. It was a race meant to break the record. That's the only thing that it was meant for.
Well, this is I believe my 41st race. It's probably the best one because we broke the record, something I've been after all my life. I grew up as a kid sailing Q-boats. There are a few of them left in the race. Fortunately, they're still out there. But I don't think we changed clothes, didn't break anything. We had a new high speed for the boat. what was it, 14 something?
1593.
1593, which is almost unheard of for a boat this size and weight.
Shuff and I started sailing together when we were 12 years old. And if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sailing with this group of people. It's been a fabulous race. It's probably the best race that I've ever been in 31 years that I've raced this race.
For years, all over the world, when we raced in different places, went to different ports, like Sammy said and Shove said the same thing. All of these fellows said it's a mill pond. So one year, it was, 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, we said to Teddy Turner, come on, Ted, come on up there and race with it. He says, that mill pond, I wouldn't bother bringing my boat up. He brought his boat up. He started to race the Mac. We got into one of the darndest storms you've ever seen in your life, and he had his socks blown off. But he's a gentleman enough that when he got to the island, he apologized to everybody, and he said, that's the damnedest piece of water that I have ever sailed on in my life, and I apologize for calling it a mill pond.
All of us here are devotees of sailing, and we just love the nature, the elements, the competition, the pleasure of it. It's just a perfect combination, I think, of competition, but you're out there with the winds and the waves, and it's just a wonderful thing, and we never get sick of it.
That's what you strive for all your life, like Shuff said. Everybody has won this race many times. The big point is, nobody has broken the record.
All through the night, boats stormed the finish line as the race committee struggled to keep up with the results. The cannons roared as the yachts passed with an eerie glow. The finish is an event that's hard to put into words.
Well, a freighter went through about the time when we went through, and just afterwards, and it was pandemonium. We saw a couple boats go aground. You know, it was you know, it's in total darkness. It's midnight. Everybody's exhausted. It was a little tense there. We had to make a couple of quick jibes to get out of the way, and you know, it was interesting. Just a combination of the whole race.
The finish is so fun because there's boats within sight, and you're not really sure whether you're ahead or not. So what you're trying to do is the boat that you see, you start racing immediately. Like, you know, all of a sudden you get this little adrenaline thing, and there's a T10 and we got to go here, we got to beat them. So you like go crazy. You're like, now you're racing again.
This has been a very spectacular race. I don't think there'll ever be another one just like this. I think the winds were just perfect. The waves were pushing us, and it made for a very fast race.
John Huff, skipper of Glider, the IMS winner overall, described the race.
We had a terrific breeze, a breeze that'll probably never be duplicated in the Mackinac for decades. That combined with our navigation man, who was a pilot with Continental Airlines, a fellow named Craig Rambo Warner. Craig put us on the rum line, and every time we started getting away from it, he encouraged us to try to sail back to the rum line, which is a straight line from Chicago up to Point Betsy. And basically we sailed faster than everybody and sailed a shorter course than everybody, and made no mistakes, which was the other factor in the race. We didn't make one mistake.
Amidst the joy, the yacht Dolphin sat quietly crippled without her mast, a testament to the power of the wind.
You know, you can talk all you want about safety. It's just when it happens, you better be thinking, because you can talk all you want about pulling pins and cutting things, and you have to see it to believe it. When you still got 50 foot of mast still trying to jab at you, it's kind of hard to think what you're supposed to do. But just save lives, all we were concerned about.
At the award ceremony held on the porch of the Mackinac Yacht Club, skippers and crews were rewarded for their efforts.
It was a ride like I doubt if we'll ever have again going to Mackinac. This was a one-in-a-lifetime event.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here, and I think the tradition of the Chicago Mackinac race, of which I've participated in 27 of them, is something that the Yacht Club and all the people associated with it should be very proud of. And over the years that I've participated, each and every one of these races seems to get better and better. It's going to be hard to top this one, though. Thank you all very much.
As the sails were folded and the burgees fastened, the island regained its gentle pace, slowly recuperating from the victory celebrations. The cycle continues, and they'll all be back next year, for there will always be a Mackinac race. Yet the race of 1987 will go down in history as the one that broke the record, and will always be remembered as a race that was once in a lifetime.
Down by the shores of Lake Michigan, I'm beginning once again. All the sails are as high as they will go. 333 miles I've got to go. Crossing Lake Michigan one more time again. Will this be a once in a lifetime ride on the wind? Running steady, gliding fast, and hoping it will last. For this could be a once in a lifetime ride on the wind. I'm looking to win Lake Michigan, Lake Michigan. Following the run line, we make our way, holding course both night and day. Looking for every life that we might know. 333 miles I've got to go. Breaking across the waves and through the wind and spray. Will this be a once in a lifetime ride on the wind? Running steady, gliding fast, hoping it will last. For this could be a once in a lifetime ride on the wind. I'm looking to win Lake Michigan, Lake Michigan. Straits by Manitou. Those green islands sure look sweet. After crossing through the endless blue, now we are sailing fast, looking for Grace Reef to pass and begin that tack straight to Mass.